Hey James, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. We're waiting for Chris, and then we'll kick this off.
Awesome. Really looking forward to it.
Hey Chris, thank you for joining.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks.
Perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and kick it off with the intro, and then introduce you and Council Dow, and I'll hand it over to James. Oh, first I want to have you just give us a short presentation on what is Council Dow, what you're trying to do, and then we have some questions prepared. With that, guys, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Um, Thank you and welcome to ENS Academy. Our mission is to accelerate the adoption of ENS worldwide. We bring ENS experts to share their knowledge with the global community. Our goal is to educate, support, and empower anyone who can benefit from this technology. We believe ENS to be an open public utility that belongs to the community. ENS Academy aims to be the place where we can all learn the fundamentals, skills, and possibilities of ENS. And today we have Chris with Console DAO. He's a founder and he's building this awesome chat tool for Web3. It has a lot to do with our Web3 identity, and it's providing a solution that's going to be better than Discord for what we need as a community. And yeah, with that, Chris, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and let us tell us a little bit about your project.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here. It's a little rainy where I am in Europe, so hopefully the thunder doesn't. I'm okay. Let you know in advance. Yeah, so I'm building Console. It's Console XYZ, and our Twitter is Console DAO if anybody wants to take a peek. And we started last August. We've been working on it in stealth mode for most of that time. And we're really excited to, we're doing a slow rollout that just started last week. And we're really excited because Console is just a better platform in so many ways than Discord, and we're really trying to bring that to the Web3 community that that we're all part of, because we really believe in building on Web3 principles. And to me, what that means is decentralized, um, decentralized, you know, technology, decentralized organization, basically promoting decentralization. And it also means owning your identity and owning your data. And that's what we're working towards with building Console. And a big part of that for us is using the ENS name system in order to verify and basically gate these communities, because you should own we believe that you should own your identity, and that also there's so many benefits to it that I think the world just hasn't yet realized. And we could talk a bit about this, but when you look at nearly all of the Discord hacks and a lot of the stuff that's happened, um, with phishing and all this kind of stuff, like a lot of it comes down to identity. Like identity is so important, and that's why I'm just especially happy to be here chatting with everybody today, and curious for questions and feedback, and anybody wants to maybe collaborate on something, see where this goes. Just very open and excited to have this chat with everybody today.
So you guys just started, you said you launched last week, so we can actually now go and start using console?
Yeah, it's a closed beta, and it's probably going to be that way for the next few months as we slowly roll out. And the reason we're doing that is we really just want to test it, and right now, chat is a feature that we're testing out, and as you know, we could talk more about it in this chat if you guys want. But in addition to chat, we have a lot of really cool features as well, like Gnosis Safe integration and a lot of other cool stuff in store. And so, in working up to building all of the different features that we have, we'll just keep doing slow testing, probably for at least the next few months, probably through like almost to the end of the year, I think. So if you're part of one of the communities that we'll be testing with, you may have early access, but otherwise you can just be on the wait list and we'll let you know.
Perfect. So I see that communities can go and apply now to access the beta, right?
Yes. We're especially interested in talking to community leaders or just people who are very active in communities and DAOs. So yeah, if you want, if you go to our site, console.xyz, you'll see a link in the bottom left or bottom right, and it will say there'll be a link there. It goes to start.console.xyz, and at start.console.xyz is where you can apply, tell us about your community, tell us about why we should chat with you. And a handful of those that come in, we look at all of them, and a handful of them we'll reach out. We might have more questions. We want to learn. I mean, I think that's a big thing that we're really excited about too, is like learning from the people that use it. And so this gives us an opportunity to just have lots of conversations and learn, what can we do to make this better for everybody.
That sounds great. And what made you start this project? I mean, we have Discord. I know Discord has, like you mentioned, all these vulnerabilities and hacks, and so what's so different about console?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's so different about console? Well, I'll answer the first question, like what made us start it, and I think it's the answers in that question as well. Um, I've been, I don't know, like studying the internet or like building apps for like a long time, like well over a decade or so. I was really inspired by BitTorrent and decentralization, back in like the early like 2006, sevens, and just like the power that decentralization was bringing, that like artists, creators, um, could all this, and I was a musician and I still am, but could just upload their music and have it shared peer to peer. It was like the most like magical thing in the world, to not have record people in the middle and everybody taking a cut. And also there was like a sense of accountability. I could share it, I could see who was sharing it. I was just like fascinated by this. um and then at the same time, I think there's a lot of issues with privacy that we've seen come to light over the past decade. Everything from what Edward Snowden has showed us to like mass, breaches of privacy with Facebook and nearly every Web2 company these days. And so, looking last summer at just kind of where we had arrived with like what was out there with decentralized technology and the ability to own your data, it just seemed logical to me that there needs to be a place that we can all go and plug in, and that's open source, and that and working towards decentralization, that we can trust, right, and that's transparent. And I was newish to, I mean, I've been in, I'd say, crypto for like 5 years. I also teach a blockchain course at Columbia University. So I've been like in like blockchain and crypto for a year, but whatever we're calling like Web3, like I think the more community DAO part of it, I started getting into last summer, and there was just this sense of like, why are we all in Discord? Like this is really not the building block. And it starts with identity. It's like I was using my email and my password, and I couldn't, verifications happening with a bot somewhere else. So I just saw this opportunity of like, 1 + 1 = 2, where it's like there's these amazing decentralized technologies. We really need to like give data back to the users. There's .eth names, there's like .sol, .btc. We're being as multi-chain as possible, but basically there's decentralized identities, and it's like, let's build something that people can build on. And that was where the idea came from, and we just started sharing it with a lot of friends, and the idea, and putting together a team of people to help build it, and that's what we've been working on.
Well, that's very cool. Thank you for putting the effort together to create something for the community because, like, really, props to the builders at a time like this. And you know, w- so some of the features, it's not just a chat, you said, right? Can you give us a little bit more about what else console does?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So console's core interaction is chat, right? Imagine, what you a lot of people are in Telegram right now or in Discord for chat, but imagine being able to be on your phone and chatting with people who are using, for example, .eth, right? Or are using a certain NFT. Like that right there is so we actually I think we underestimate we being like the larger community, the power of the .eth name. And by that I mean like the way I try to explain it in my class sometimes is, it's if somebody's new, they might not understand the value of it, but it's like a domain name, right? And people understand domain names. And so it's like if you have a domain and you're like, I don't know, I'm google.com or instagram.com, people trust that, right? Because only one person owns it and it signals like this is some sense of authenticity. And like now, like through the work of a lot of people in this community, right? In this room, we're bringing that to chat, right? And so now, not only when I go to the website, I know I'm at google.com or whatever.com, but now I can say like, I'm talking with cryptoreporter.eth, right? Or I'm talking to julia.eth, and I know who I'm talking with, and that, I think having that in your pocket and having that like as an interface is really important. So chat is our main like core interaction, but then the question becomes like, well, how do we augment and like how do we improve these relationships, like how do we build community? And I think there's like so much great community building going on, in all different chains and everything, but I think especially like the ETH community. I've just seen a lot of great DAOs, that have done a lot of great organizing specifically, just that's what's on my radar. And so like trying to learn from like asking and interviewing like, okay, well what else, what else do you guys need? And you'll soon find out that, well, we need governance, right? And so we have things like Snapshot. Although to me, governance isn't just voting. Governance is just like how do we make decisions, right? It doesn't need to be a vote. It could be who's in the room for certain things and who gets us to talk and who, so anyway, there's a lot of like things in coordination that we're trying to figure out. um, we want maybe transparency on who has access to the money. So one of the modules, we're calling them modules, one of the modules we're building is called Treasury, right? And so now you have chat, but you can also see, well, who's the owners on the Gnosis safe, and like that makes the chat experience that much better. You have transparency right on the same screen. You can access the Gnosis safe. And we want to bring that to other chains too. We're building. Well, we've actually built a treasury for Bitcoin. And actually, in the room, we have tbb.btc. Tala, he is the lead dev on that. I can see he's joining us in here. Yeah, because we want to also just be multi-chain and bring in more opportunities. So there's really no one doing a treasury with Bitcoin that you can also have governance and that. So yeah, where there are modules that exist, like in Ethereum, we're using Snapshot, we're using Gnosis, we're bringing it in superpower in the chat. And in certain ecosystems where we see an opportunity that doesn't exist, like the Bitcoin ecosystem, we're building some of that out from scratch. And we're working with I'd say it's like we're not. I wouldn't say like we're decentralized, but like we are just like working with a bunch of, I'd say, like contractors and open source developers and people that we're partnering with to help us bring these. So we're not all doing it all ourselves, and that's yeah, I guess it's somewhat decentralized, but it's just been kind of cool to see so many projects get off the ground. So yeah, that was kind of a long answer, but basically chat and then supercharged by these modules is like the summary of that.
So communities can actually take advantage of these modules, kind of like these are not just for the console, right? So if I start a community, I can actually use the treasury for Bitcoin for my community.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, imagine like you set up a community and you want to do fundraising in BTC. you could use one of our modules for that. If you want to do it with ETH, like there's a lot of things that already exist. So like you could use Syndicate, you could use Juicebox, and we'll be compatible with any ERC20 token, and we'll do token gating for any ETH NFT or .eth or all of that. So that's kind of been our strategy so far.
Wow, that's awesome. James, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question on Web3 identity. So specifically, how do you view it right now? Like, is it primarily in Twitter? Is it, elsewhere? Like, how do you see it, the current state of Web3 identity now? And then where do you see it in the next 2 to 3 years, where we have a much broader adoption of crypto? Will we see it primarily in gaming? Will we see it in social platforms or other online communities? How do you see? And then I guess the third part would be is uh, what might be the big turning point for Web3 identity to really become big?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, basically adoption of decentralized identity. Like how do we get that into the mainstream? I think you asked
Exactly.
three questions, so if I maybe forgot the first one, but I think the question was basically like, yeah, what are the stages at which this becomes mainstream? Where are we at now, and how do we get
Exactly.
going?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the exciting thing about if we talk about identity, I mean, identity can mean a lot of different things, right? I think one way that we're thinking about identity in the ENS community is, just simply just registering your .eth name, and that's one form of it. But identity is also being used, in NFT communities. If there's like 10,000, of a kind of what it's Bored Apes, it's like your NFT represents your identity. There's a lot of talk about soulbound tokens. Like there's a lot of things I think that represent your participation in a network or in a community, right? But just to kind of keep that simple, I guess, I think, I mean, at the end of the day, like a lot of these things kind of all just boil down to being tokens. I don't want to get like too technical, but like I believe even a .eth is just an NFT. I know the .btc name is just an NFT at the end. It's just basically stored on your wallet. I think the .eth is as well. Um, and so what we really just need is like what's called token gating, right? Just like applications that allow you to sign in with your wallet. And right now, there's been this really cool kind of like organic growth of people using .eth, .btc, .sol as their identity on Twitter. And by identity, I mean like in the kind of like they identify like in a like almost like an ego way, like this is who I am kind of way, you know. But it's not being used in identity as far as like verification, as like you can't log in using that. I think over time that will be adapted, and I think Web 2 is probably looking to Web 3 to like take the lead and kick it off in some ways. And we're seeing a lot of apps in Web 3 that you sign in with your wallet, and I think that's really cool for two reasons. I think the first reason is if you own your keys, like if you're logging in with your wallet, then you basically own that name. Like it proves ownership over it. And like, what do I mean by like own that name? Well, you don't really own your Instagram name, right? Um, anyone who's ever I'll be the first to admit anyone who's ever gotten kicked off Instagram for creating a salty account or something like that, you'll know you don't own it because they could shut it down, right? I mean, the same with Discord. We saw Discord, shut down the Tornado Cash Discord server last week, right, on Friday. So you don't really own those. Those are just records in a database, and it's centralized. And then and that's really where the opportunity for decentralization comes from. Is all the work's been done with ENS, for example, to put your identity on the blockchain, and so we have these systems, right, like Console, and all we're doing is token gating so that we can read and we can say, oh, okay, cool. This is James. We know it's James. And then when you're interacting with people, they see your .eth name and they know who you are. I think that will become more of a trend as like Web3 takes it on. We're starting, I mean, this is like a question for the audience too. I'd be curious what you guys think, but I think we're going to start with not even allowing emails and passwords. I mean, that is what we're going to start with. And, but then we have this interesting case, and this is like a creative problem if you guys want to help weigh in on it. But, okay, so we just have email. So we just have the wallet. You own your keys to your identity. You own your identity, right? We don't own it. So that's great. But now how do we also like get notifications to people, right? So like we're thinking about potentially taking email just as like for notifications, although there's some cool stuff going on with like notifications, decentralized. So it's interesting, like the ties between Web 2 and Web 3. I would love to bounce back if anybody has any thoughts on how important it is to just use your wallet. We think it's pretty important because we think that it it restricts you from being hacked. Like we don't want to own that data. And at the same time, we're like, how do we get everybody notifications? So that's just a little insight into what we're thinking about. And feel free to volley that or reply back with a question if you're curious to hear more.
No, I think that's powerful. I mean, with that way you eliminate bots as well. I definitely would vote for that if just log in with your decentralized identity, and this way there's accountability. It's not, you can't just create 100 accounts out of nowhere. You would need 100 .eth names, right? So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and just adding to that, as I notice, ENS integrating more Dapps and continuing on that path, you could imagine a time where uh, it's necessary for a new DApp to be able to integrate with ENS just for the growth, just for the removing friction for the members. That it becomes a scenario where if you're a new DApp, you need to be integrated in order to really scale.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm surprised it just hasn't even happened sooner, to be honest. Like, yeah, I can't really name. I've seen it, in the wild, but it just hasn't become like a standard. I still think we're really early, and yeah, I think we're gonna see a big change in that. There was this time when like I was young, and I just remember like you started to see like .com names and advertisements, and it was kind of like I'm totally dating myself here, but it was kind of like, it was like late '90s or whatever. I was like, is that like a thing now? Like people's like, it's not the company name, it's the .com. It's like, like what are? And I feel like it's gonna be the same thing with names. It's gonna be like, oh, everybody's just gonna be their .eth, like everybody's just gonna be their name because that's authentic. You can authenticate that, and it's like who they are. It's like we all become domain names basically on the internet, and I think that could be really powerful, but we're not there yet. Even Telegram is like, I don't even know. You just make up some name. I couldn't get my name. I'm like, some castig something, but that won't be a problem once you claim your ETH name.
Well, and adding to that, it'll be interesting to see how people value the .eth versus a PFP. Where that loyalty, like where that balance will lie. Like, do they see more of their identity and more consistency in the .eth because it's very easy for them to change their PFP. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that will be interesting. Yeah, I think yeah, I never got so into the PFP. There's this profile picture collecting of NFTs is what that means, right? It's just for anybody who's new. But yeah, I think I don't know. It seems a little faddish, or it just seems a little like of the moment. Whereas like, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like a fashion almost, and that's really what it is. But with the .eth, we're talking about something a lot more kind of fundamental, right? It's more like you're like domain or your social security number or something. It's like, it's something you could have for life, and it might, or you're like, it's like your email address, right? I mean, it's like that. It's like we're familiar with these Web 2 primitives, and now it's, now we'll have .eth, and that will probably be like email in the future. You'll just be emailing with .eth people, .btc, .sol people. It's like that will be the domain. It's the same primitive. It's just decentralized.
Yeah, I really like that. It's kind of like censorship proof, and if we create a community, it's going to be totally private. I know with Discord, nothing is private. I think they have access to like almost everything that happens on there. So um, that these kind of tools, I think, how can we bring awareness to the value of these things to the community? I think people just join Discord blindly without really knowing the issues with Discord.
Yeah, for sure. People at the end of the day, like myself included, you know, you kind of just want the easiest thing that solves the problem. And if there's something, it's easy to it's appealing to just go with what's the mainstream thing sometimes. And it's like, that's what everybody's doing. Um, and it's usually just when that thing fails us that we start to have a rock in our shoe, and we're like, ugh, this isn't, we saw it with every social network, Facebook, MySpace, like, everybody thinks you're too big to fail, and then you have this moment. I think for Discord, the moment has been like just the string of millions of dollars stolen over the past 6 months. I think people are getting really fed up with it, and I think that's not going to stop. Actually, tomorrow is tomorrow Tuesday. Yes, tomorrow's Tuesday. We're going to be putting out either tomorrow or Wednesday a really great report that we worked with the cybersecurity firm on, that we diagnosed just like a few dozen Discord hacks. And really the main part of the article is like we show how 5 or 6 communities are hacked, and the weakness at the core of all the hacks is identity. If identity had been more secured, if they had been using a .eth name, is more or less our argument. And if Discord had been just reading right from the blockchain and not using a bot, um, and done it directly, a majority of those hacks would not have happened. But we're learning that the hard way, because this is also new. But I think people are wising up. I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. And Discord is not made for what these decentralized communities, need, right? It's kind of like an old gaming chat tool, and what you're building is going to have features that are specific to these decentralized communities.
100%. Yeah.
James, let's go on with our questions. Let's keep it going, and then I think in a few minutes we'll also open it up to the community so they can ask their questions to Chris.
Yeah, I had a question. Do you guys have any plans to integrate SBTs into what you're doing? Would that be something of value, or not necessarily?
Yeah, I think so. So SBTs, soulbound tokens, right? So my understanding of soulbound tokens, I read the paper that Kevin and Vitalik put together, and there was maybe one other name on that. And yeah, from my understanding, the idea of a soulbound token, just for anyone listening who's new, is the idea that you have, I guess, more or less like an NFT, or kind of an ownership that is unique to you, that basically like a non-transferable identity that you can keep with you for life, like your metadata. And yeah, basically there represents, yeah, your identity in like a, I guess, indestructible way. Is that how you would describe it, or is that
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, it's
yeah.
something that I'm really excited about because there's such clear use cases, right? Like medical records, degrees, certifications. Like when I go to LinkedIn and I read someone's profile, I have zero knowledge if that's true, right? Anybody could write anything, but if you have an SBT attached to it, it's genuine because it's issued by the university.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it opens the doors for so much stuff. It seems really early. Like, if Do you know anyone using them yet? I have one example, but it's not I could share, but I don't know if you have an example
Yeah,
that you.
yeah. Binance is launching SBTs for doing KYC. I think that's really huge because if it works for Binance, I could see other exchanges following. And it makes sense because KYC is so integral to their business. And if they can do it once and keep like a permanent record of that, that wallet can be used for so many other things in the Binance ecosystem. But they're already on it. They've already started that process. So I think we'll see like a real wave of adoption in SBTs soon.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. That's huge. Yeah, that's a great use case. Because if you get KYC'd with Binance and then all of a sudden you're cleared kind of legally, you could go and just start using so many other products. So many products you get held back because every time you want to use a new DeFi app or a new whatever, you have to like go. You have to show your passport. You have to do all. Have to do the same thing, and it also seems very insecure. So like, yeah, that's great. Cool. Yeah, we haven't looked into that like specifically. I think a soulbound token, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just an NFT, like or it's probably some like ERC. I'm not actually sure. I think it actually is like a new ERC. So we haven't looked into specifically that proposal and like incorporating it, but it's definitely like the concept of it and like supporting it is definitely on our radar. And we really also, I think one thing we're trying to, we just launched, and so it's early days. Like we're still just trying to like get chat and get everything like hooked up. But one of the things that was like helps us move forward quicker, and this is why we have the application on our site. I mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again. It's start.console.xyz. Is because we're looking for communities that are really like leading the way. And so if there are any communities, I know a few people at Binance, maybe I can see, we just want use cases of like, we want to use soulbound tokens on console. And then from our end, we're like, we've been waiting for you. Thank you. Let's chat.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of also, I see soulbound tokens as social proof. Imagine, communities issuing soulbound tokens to certain members or even as a membership gateway to certain extra perks. And it's a social proof. Like if I look into your wallet and I see all these soulbound tokens that you collected from different platforms and different communities, is going to make me trust you more. So it's very exciting to see maybe in console, in my profile, I can highlight certain soulbound tokens.
I love it. So that's awesome. That's exactly like what I was thinking when James brought up soulbound tokens. Because in console, when you click on a user, you'll be able to go to their what's called the people page. So you'll be able to see their profile, right? And some of the things we're thinking through, and again, I'll be honest, like these are things we're like literally this week and last week still trying to figure out with our UI and how we want to display this. But the question that we're working through is, when someone reaches out to you, right? It's like I'm castig.eth, right? Like I reach out to you. How do you know if you can trust me? Like it's a tricky question, right? Like I reach out to you, and this, we can contrast this with like DMs on Discord. Like every time I get a DM, I'm like, who the hell is this? Right? Why are you DMing me? I don't know. Like, and if it has a link in there to click something, I immediately don't, like I delete it or something. But it's often the case, like 1 out of 10 on Discord, where it's like actually somebody who's trying to be helpful, and it's like, how do I know if this person's helpful? Well, on Discord, you don't know anything about that person, right? Their name could be exact. They could be one letter off from like somebody you trust, but what we're trying to do on console, or what we're working to build the people UI, is when you click on castig.eth, you'll be able to see all the data that's public about my domain, so like my ETH, my ENS. So you'll see when I purchased it, right? And right away, if you see that I purchased it like 2 years ago, you'll have a different impression of who I am versus if I purchased it like 2 hours ago. Right? And that's where soulbound tokens come in too. It's like, well, I'll first off say that like we're also using things like snapshot data, right? If I've seen that you've been active on Snapshot, or that you're an owner on like a Gnosis safe that has a certain, like all of these are data that's all public on the blockchain. And so we're reading that to give each other a better profile of who we are. So you're kind of building this like kind of trail of a public trail of like how and more than just like the amount that you own, which is like kind of where we're at right now with a lot of DAOs. It's like you paid a lot of money, you should talk a lot. And I don't think that's the way it's going to go in the future. It's going to be your contribution and your, somewhat meritocratic, I think, on what you can provide. And so those are the things we're looking at. And soulbound tokens it sounds awesome because I think that fits like into this kind of this basket of things that we're looking at. But well, I will admit we haven't thought more about it than that just yet. But I love that we're talking about it now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you for, taking that, and I know you will do something with it. We're excited to see that because even I think it provides a networking opportunity between people chatting within the console, right? Those communities are always a place where you can network with others, and if you can see the certificates or you can see the credentials of someone through soulbound tokens, you're going to be trust that, right, that person, and trust that these certificates are issued by that organization, that then you can't really fake that. So it's really powerful. And yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. That's awesome. Well said.
Yeah, I'm very excited for console. I think we should, ENS Academy, we would love to have our community on there as well. So I'll go ahead and sign up. And yeah, James, do you have any other questions before we open it up to the community?
Yeah, I have a question on Dapps. Like, um, what will it take for Dapps to get mainstream adoption? Because crypto is on a path to mainstream adoption, right? Like, we can all see that's where the wave is headed, and it's like this unstoppable wave. It's just a matter of time, and the numbers prove it, right? But how do you see that for Dapps? Like, what will it take for Dapps to be on that similar path where, okay, it's just inevitable, they're going to keep growing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of us are creating, these dApps, these decentralized apps. Yeah, how do we how do we like find product market fit, right? That's really what it's about. How do we make them useful? How do we I don't know that I have like a big broad kind of like, I know it's tricky, right? I think if we look back to the history of the internet, right? It was like kind of the wild west for uh, you know 91 the internet started. It probably took like 9 years until there was like this big boom, right? You know, like over that time. And if you look at the adoption of wallets, there's something like I think only 4% of people even like have crypto in the world, or it's something around that. Maybe just even in the United States. But the point being, I looked this up recently. That's basically where we were in like 1999 or something like that. So it's still really early. Like in 1999, I wasn't as like uh, uh, involved in any of this back then. I was pretty young, but I was aware that like there was always internet companies and like they were doing things, but they weren't like they weren't like mainstream. Everybody kind of thought it was like a fad. I think that's where we are. So I guess my only response to that, it's like a big response, would be um, that it's I think it takes time and that it's early. And I think that's like a lot of people think they're like too late for crypto or Web3, but actually it's really early. But then sharing specifically, about DApps, like console as a DApp, I think probably DApps will get more mainstream when we kind of stop thinking of them as DApps. And console, it's like we're doing something in some ways like really simple. Um, and so like when we launch, like when you first use it, basically like during the launch, like now, like some parts of our stack are still centralized, right? And we're using like Amazon, and it's like I understand the implications of that, but the truth is like a lot of the decentralized technology isn't even ready, like, and I could talk more about that specifically, but like to handle millions of people, right? So we're still building, we're still getting there, and specifically, we're taking a decentralized, progressively decentralized approach. So we're using decentralized identity, we're using decentralization for funds, like a lot of things, but certain things like the chat portion, like we can use these Web 2 tools that work really well, and it's I don't know, it's still a DApp, right? It's still using decentralized pieces. But I guess my point is, it doesn't have to feel like 100%. I don't think decentralized. I think it just has to feel useful, right? And I think it has to feel familiar, and that's to like be beautiful. Like I think the UI has to be intuitive. So these are some of the things we're trying to bring. And I think once we build up and get that product market fit, once we have people using it, like our number has been 10,000 active users. Like once we hit that number, then that's the point at which we're gonna really kind of start drilling into the decentralization of the stack. But at first, we just gotta get things that people use, and that's been our approach.
Yeah, and just adding one thing to that, I think mobile will be huge. I mean, right now there's 7 billion smartphones in the world, but it's very, very early for crypto to incorporate mobile. But I think that's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Solana phone. Um, just from the user adoption standpoint. Yeah, it is like I don't actually know all the details of that project, but it's an interesting idea if you are already authenticated. If you're like iPhone passcode basically is like your authentication into Web 3. Like if that's all, if your face basically becomes all you need, like there is something really cool about that. Because yeah, because back to your question, bringing Dapps, bringing Web 3 to the mainstream. Um, mobile is a big part of our lives, and there haven't been so many successful yet bridges of apps. Mostly, I think because the web, MetaMask and web apps, and the web it's like I don't know, it's like the leap from the browser, the desktop to the mobile phone. I don't know, it's like it's still early. Like it works, but it's not. I don't know too many people that are, I don't know too many people that are. I could be wrong, but I don't know too many people that are using like MetaMask on their phone. At least I'm not, but maybe I'm wrong on that. But it doesn't seem that way, or I don't see it that often. So I think there's still more work to be done.
Yes, absolutely. You guys heard it here. Council DAO is your solution for your Web3 chat and other awesome features that every decentralized community will need. It's going to eliminate a lot of issues that we're having with Discord, with fraud and bots, and a lot of UI issues that are it's not designed for us. So I'm very excited to use Console. If you have any questions, please go ahead and request now. We will have about 7 more minutes before we end the space with Chris. And please go ahead and share this space with your audience. Go ahead and follow Chris and follow Console DAO. If you know of a community that can benefit from this and you want to start now, go ahead to their website, click on the link to start and apply. And yeah, thank you so much, Chris. We really enjoyed the conversation. Oh, we have a request here. Go ahead, Crypto Reporter. Welcome.
Hey everybody, GM or good afternoon where I am. Chris, nice to have you on, man. It was interesting because we were able to have a couple of discussions and something really just that you had said earlier that really, really stayed ingrained in my mind. And you basically said that once you solve for identity, it's only from there that you can establish trust, right? Um, And so that just really resonated with me, and so that's why I really became a believer in the mission for Console. But I have a question for you in particular, and that would be and I know we've kind of touched on this before, but what would you need from the community as far as what are some things that we are able to do to help out in this mission?
Ooh, Crypto Reporter. Good to chat again. And thanks. Thanks for the great question. Yeah. So what can we what do we need? That's a that's a good one. I don't know that I have a great. Let me think about that for a second. I mean, some of the things on our mind right now are, I think, just learning more about the features and the needs that the community has, that you guys have. We're going to be putting out a poll on our Twitter next week, um, just more or less asking, because we have a roadmap and we have our kind of hypotheses, which is based a lot on the conversations that we're having on what features should be next as we roll out. Like I said, we're building a lot of modules. We have an iPhone app coming, an Android app, and we kind of looked at our roadmap and we're like, well, what do people want? What do you want first? Like as we roll this out, and so I would say look out for that poll, or just hit me up on Twitter after this, and feel free to just write me back and be like, this is my biggest pain point with Discord. I hope you guys solve this, or I hope console's this, or I'm looking forward to console because of this. Like, if you tweet it at me, I'll read it. And, any of that feedback, just would just be super helpful. And then, beyond that, just sharing the news, with other people who you think it might find it valuable. Very happy to chat on more Twitter spaces, or, with any communities that want to chat and hear more about console. We're talking with community leaders first, and so, like I said, it's community by community first, and then we'll eventually open it up so that people can create their own communities right on console. But yeah, that would be great. So tell me what you need, and just help share the message. That would be super helpful. Thanks for asking.
Of course, man. Of course. Like I said, it was an honor to be able to talk to you. I know we'll have many more discussions in the future. The other thing that I think is kind of crazy is that I was pretty much doing a lot of research, and found myself actually watching the Lex Friedman podcast with Michael Saylor, and he talks about in the podcast just a whole bunch of different areas involved in crypto. Well, one thing that he did bring up was the idea of verification, and the idea, if in his example he was like, well, what if everybody had like an orange check, if they were able to pay like in crypto, and in his instance it was Bitcoin, pay Bitcoin for safe travel across cyberspace, so that you could verify identity, you could have trust, you wouldn't be spammed by bots all the time. Like, there's the reason that there's so many bots out there is because there is no friction. You can spin up a bot easily. But now, with actually minting an ENS name, that creates friction in the cyberspace. And I'm thinking, just this whole time, I'm like, that's out there. Like, this is that the Web3 identity, blockchain identity. It all encompasses that verification. So I think that your mission is a very important one, and like I said, be happy to support any way we can.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Crypto Reporter. Yeah. That's great. I feel the same way, and I'm so happy to hear the other people feel the same way. I think what Michael Saylor was talking about, he probably didn't say that ETH names, but that was what he was talking about. I know there are .btc names. I have one, and it is secured by the Bitcoin blockchain, and there's .eth secured by .eth. At the end of the day, I think just having a decentralized identity, probably on one of the main chains, it's just such a game changer, I think, for how we really, really the challenge is, like, we have identity in the real world, whether that's like our license or our fingerprints or all these things. And, like, we're still in the early days of the internet if you zoom out, and we're still trying to figure out, how do we have identity online? And so far it's just not working, because so far it's been my email and Google gives me a password and they control it. And I think we all know that's not working. And I imagine that's what Michael Saylor was talking about. I imagine that's what resonates with you, is using the blockchain, which I see as this like forever database. It's like this database that we have. We can put our identity on and put it out there and not have to worry about someone coming along and trying to sabotage it or steal it or masquerade as us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Crypto Reporter. That was such a great insight. Thank you, Chris. I want to let you know we're going to be signing up. We would love to be part of your at least the beta period right now. I can't wait to use console. And yeah, with that, we're going to go ahead and close the space. We will upload this onto iTunes and Spotify very soon, and you can share it with your audience. So, Chris, it was a pleasure. James, do you have any final remarks?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Chris and also mention we've uploaded a lot of great episodes on both iTunes and Spotify. So check those out if you get a chance.
Yes, and we're having a space on Thursday, guys. I just pinned it to the top, so for those in the audience. It's going to be about importing your DNS domain to ENS and why, and what are the differences, the caveats with doing that. So yeah, Chris, thank you. Any last words?
Oh man, no, thank you for having me. Thanks for having such an engaging audience and great questions. And yeah, if anybody wants to follow along with the project, it's at Console DAO, or you can just follow me. And yeah, I would love to hear from you. Love to hear what's on your mind. And yeah, looking forward to just like collaborating with more people, maybe in this audience and beyond. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a wonderful day.